In these days, Val di Fassa writes a new chapter in this competition climbing history, once again welcoming Europe's top climbers. The IFSC European Climbing Championships of Lead and Speed took place here in 2017. This weekend, Campitello hosts the first stage of the Senior Lead European Cup here at Idel Climbing Wall. Over 100 athletes, actually 109 athletes from 18 countries will compete in lead discipline here, tackling brand new routes on a 15-metre wall. What will define this competition? Well, only time will tell. The goal, obviously, to reach the highest point within 6 minutes. Scores will be based on the number of holds secured. After collectively studying the route, the climbers will take on the challenge one at a time with no prior attempts. These routes will of course be stripped and reset for this evening's finals. Among the male participants we have Australia's Joshua Damasco, who actually was unfortunately put out of the semi-finals, so we won't be watching him here. We have Austria's Felix Mader, who was the European youth champion, and he came first actually in the IFSC Youth European Cup in Dorban in 2024. That was a lead competition. In the women's field we have Emily Scott, who is also a medalist in the Oceania Championships. We have Magdalena Compian, bronze medalist at the Youth World Championships and silver medalist at the European Cup, and Spain's Isar Martinez Almendros, who was third in the IFSC Youth European Championships here in Italy in the boulder discipline in Bergamo. So now we have the first athletes coming out to join us in the stadium, I should say. On the right we have the women's route, and on the left of the wall we have the men's, as these athletes just reassess them before they make their starts. And here we see, just looking at our starts list, in the women's category we have Zoe Egel from Switzerland, and for the men we have Felix Mader from Austria. And I am joined in the commentary booth here by none other than Nick and Daniels from Sweden. He is part of the route setting team here in Val di Fassa. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you again. And thanks for joining me in the commentary booth. It would have been a very lonely existence, should you not?
It's my pleasure.
So I'm going to ask you some details about these routes. You've already given me a brief introduction, and we see both athletes have already made their way through the first sort of 5-6 meters of these routes. Focusing on the Austrian climber Felix, he seems to establish himself into this sort of tricky transition that you mentioned, which leads him into the traverse from left to right.
Yeah, so the big trick here is there's a very specific clipping position that's coming up soon, and depending on how well you can figure this out and find the easiest way, so to speak, will really define, I think, the tone for the rest of his route.
Okay.
Because it's quite easy to start burning a little bit too much energy in this position.
Okay. Seem to make that clip fairly steadily. Is it this sort of next moment?
Yes, and now
yeah, so leaving the rope.
He's a little bit uncertain.
Yeah. He's managed it.
And he figures it out.
So how thin is that left hold? Was that quite a poor hold to make the clip from? He did hesitate there, didn't he?
It's a little bit less than one pad, I would say. It's quite good. I think it's more to do with the position feels a little bit off for the body.
Okay.
And now he's into the traverse section.
And that's your tricky use of footholds.
So
creating an insecure position, is it?
Yeah.
He's got you to thank for that. Nice. That looks a fairly secure position, but I wouldn't call it a rest. He's sort of moving into a steeper section of the wall now.
And now we see the angle will kick back quite a bit, and I think from this point on it's going to be pure fight. It's checking the time.
And my initial inspection of the women's route was that it was nowhere near as steep as it actually is. It's a very deceptive wall as you stand face onto it. When you stand to the right-hand side and you get a look at the profile, I mean, it's more than 20 degrees steeper than I assessed in that original moment. And as we see...
it's a bummer.
Yeah, that's a relatively early fall, I would say, from Zoe there. Unfortunate. You were saying that if she made that next clip and the next section there was a possible rest if you can find it?
Potentially.
Okay.
But let's see what Felix does here, because now this is going to be the first really intense move. And we'll see if he's able to commit into the small jump that we set this.
Oh, nice.
Nice. And he goes for the 1-2.
Yeah, beautiful. Felix, 19 years of age. Don't have any height statistics on him, but he looks like he could be 180 or 180 and a bit, so not struggling with that jump at all. And now he's moving, am I right, potentially moving into a footless section of this route?
Yes. Coming up is the campus sequence. He's fixed his hands, because initially you want to go right hand into that jug first, but he was able to get into the correct position without too much issue.
Nice.
And now we'll see how he solves this part.
Yeah, and we have the luxury of focusing on Felix here. So we've got the same format here in the semis as we have the finals. So we will not be interrupted by the entry of another climber until Felix has completed his attempt on this route. Oh, nice. Keeping his feet really high in the back of the wall there.
And now we'll see how he figures this out. Oh.
Is this already a new method?
He's making it quite far for the first climber on the wall.
Absolutely. Remember,
Wow.
Felix has effectively qualified in last for these semi-finals. These athletes coming out in reverse order. And yeah, he's already in the sort of upper section of the wall here, the final third. And he's looking fairly good, although I'm sure this bit's going to be particularly powerful. And he's going to have to make his way to some very thin yellow crimps on this volume. Oh, he's managed to hold that. And cross through, wow.
There he goes.
Really great start in for the men's field.
Oh, he just sprinted through that route. It's a little bit nervous to see the first climber get so high.
Yes, I imagine this process is a very sort of intriguing and nerve-wracking one for you.
But we'll see. At least here in the commentator's booth, it feels quite a bit more cold than what it was during our testing.
Yeah, I've brought this temperature and humidity monitor just to see what's happening out there. So we've got it sat in the shade, and it's reading 47% humidity and 21.8 degrees. Feels fresher than that, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think we have quite a good breeze today.
Yeah.
The conditions for us when we were testing were more between like 25 degrees to 28 degrees.
Okay.
So there was a very big difference in the friction and how the holds felt.
I imagine that's incredibly hard to take that into account and adapt what you're putting on the wall to the conditions you're predicting.
Yeah, it's definitely like the hardest part of setting on outdoor walls like this is that the amount of factors that you can actually control is drastically reduced.
Okay.
But we had a similar situation in the qualies yesterday where the first two males that came out had really good high points on the routes, and immediately you're stressed. You're like, oh, wow, okay, maybe this is a little bit too easy. But sometimes like coming out the first into the semis is in a lot of ways an advantage.
Okay.
There's no expectations. You're the first one out.
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to the crowd cheering on everyone else.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people, it's easier to give a very pure try.
Okay. So can be to your advantage being the first athlete out. So Sarah from Austria immediately onto the wall here on this women's route, which you were saying is potentially packs more of a punch than the qualification routes did.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, this profile that I misread, we're looking at about a 30-degree start into something like a 45, 50-degree second section of the wall with the sort of white background, which Sarah will transition into if she makes these moves successfully in a moment. And then we're up into 70 degrees eventually and a small horizontal section before the slight head wall, which you don't actually get to climb on. It just contains that final hold to make the clip of the chain if you're fortunate enough and fit enough to make it.
I think the biggest difference here is the quali routes for the women's yesterday had substantially less overhang. So I think for us, that's kind of the biggest question mark coming into the semis, is that they're on an angle that we haven't really seen them perform on in the same way.
Sure.
And additionally, like this route is 10 or 12 moves longer than what the longest quali was.
Okay.
So potentially we're going to see different athletes coming out with different strengths. depending on their level of endurance and capacity.
Could change the leaderboard completely from qualifications through semis and then obviously into finals. Yeah, so you were saying they are climbing, both the male and the female athletes are climbing in angles that are new to them effectively, because these routes do not follow the same line as the qualification routes did yesterday.
The qualies, by definition of that we need to have 4 lines on the same route or on the same wall, is usually much more straight up, maybe some sideways variations or deviations.
Yeah.
But now when we have semis and we can use essentially the entire wall, there's a lot more strafing going on.
You must be spoilt for choice on this wall, honestly, because there's so many angles to play with. I mean, there's 2 clear direct lines into these sort of 2 head walls that are well out of camera shot right now. But there's a lot of wall to the left of the male climber, Stefan from Czech, and I imagine you have got sufficient room to place 4 decent lines without any major compromise.
Yes. In the qualies, we wanted to avoid like this large bulge feature. Nice. Easily goes for the 1-2.
Yeah, honestly, spent quite a lot of time in that movement quite comfortably, yeah. Looked very strong on the left arm. Beautiful technique, using the heel hook to sort of save energy in the arms.
It's very interesting that the athletes seem to want to go right hand to the crimp first, instead of going directly into the jug, which will enable them to not have to switch hands before going into the next move.
Yeah.
And you see now he's trying to shuffle it around, but the green jug that he's on now is, the first version was not blocked. You could match easily, and now it's substantially more of a one-hand hold.
Okay. And you've made that adaptation to the route based on what you saw in qualification from these guys?
Yes. But now he's put himself in a weird position. He missed the clip.
And meanwhile with Sarah, she has found a left drop knee, but it doesn't look like much of a rest position to me. Does she need to be lower in those volumes to make any sort of recovery in that route?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think at least what we were theorizing with the route setting team is that instead of the right heel on the yellow squadra, you would want to get some kind of stem or drop knee position between those 2.
Okay. Dropping the right knee?
Yes.
Okay, right, yeah. So yeah, because she comes from such a, extreme right on the wall and sort of traversing from right to left, maybe that's a sort of counterintuitive position to move into, because those red hole-shaped sort of dish holds are sort of leading you up into the wall immediately. So let's see if any of the climbers find that position in the next attempts.
Yes. Ideally, from watching the team that set the women's semi, is that you get into those 2 red dishes, you want to get a bicycle on the red so that you can get the body over.
Okay.
And then maybe you can establish some kind of rest.
Okay.
But as it's on site, I mean, these athletes, it's all for the first time. You have to make decisions extremely quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had an observation period prior as standard. But, I mean, reading that height from the ground, I didn't see any binoculars. I mean, it's very hard to predict, what's going to happen on the wall, and I'm sure things, can change quite dramatically after you've pulled into a position. Yeah, you've got split seconds to make a decision to do something effective with what you're presented with in your hands and under your feet. So, now we have our 3rd climbers out, Piotr from Poland and Martina from Germany. Piotr immediately on the wall. Looking quite smooth in those first few movements. Is this a bit tentative for the guys at the start? Looks like you need to be good on small holds, but
I think it's quite high tension. The feet they're okay, but I think it's easy to get a little bit stressed out here.
Okay.
Especially coming into the next volume after this, it's just 2 quite slopey pinches.
Okay.
So you have to start engaging quite a lot right away.
Okay. See that.
Yes.
Yeah, not so much contact.
Exactly, and especially like lots of weight shifts, moving the feet and the hips from one side to the other for almost every move.
Yeah, you could see Piotr flicking his feet from left to right to be in the right position to take the next holds.
But Piotr had quite a good performance yesterday in the qualies, so hopefully he can continue today.
Qualifications consisting of 2 routes. I mean, is it a particularly draining process for these guys and girls, do you think? They're so fit.
I mean, there's so many things that taking from, say, a training environment into a competition environment, there's so many different factors that induce stress. But I mean, this is what they train for, and
yeah. At this point, the sort of physicality's there and the endurance is there, and as long as the sort of preparation in the short term, like in the last 2 days leading up to the competition, is good, then I guess it comes down to a mental game and problem solving.
Yes.
Execution.
He's trying to find a cheeky knee bar.
Yeah, I can see that. He's obviously got the right length of shin to make that knee work in that position. Seems to be getting something off that. No knee pad, of course, but he's got a decent thigh on him. He can sort of wedge in behind that hold and get some weight off the hands.
He looks very relaxed, at least. So let's see how he handles this next section.
I like what the guys have done in the route setting team with this sort of triangulation of volumes, creating a bit of a pattern in the wall. And
nope. Oh, there he goes.
Was he trying to hold it one hand?
Yes.
Didn't catch the right hand on the opposite side of the volume.
It goes to hold just one hand.
Yeah.
But I think his body needed to be a little bit higher.
Okay.
And you really need to be, I think, quite aggressive with the left foot to flick it back into the wall to immediately stabilize.
Okay.
But it's good to see that not every athlete so far has made it past this point, because this is definitely one of the first points where we want to start siphoning off the athletes.
Okay. Yeah.
Where really, like, the indecision will cause you to fall.
Yeah, these routes are obviously meant to be, perfectly progressive in their difficulty level, but from move to move, it's incredibly hard to manage that.
And now we see how it goes for Martina, and coming into the section where the other athletes have fallen.
So this section of the wall is approximately 50 degrees, although looking square on it maybe doesn't look that way. But maybe the sort of shape that she will cut in the wall as she moves up into this big yellow volume with her left hand, you maybe be able to see just how steep it is.
She's in slightly the wrong position. I think she needs to have her hands in.
Oh, right.
Oh, maybe she can get out of this.
Oh, that's beautiful use. Yeah, so almost like an undercut guppy, we'd call it in English. I don't know what the term would be in another language. I think that's used in American English for climbing. What would that be in Sweden?
Oh gosh, what's a guppy?
Where you like wrap the whole.
Oh, like a farm.
Is it a farm?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that in English as well? Is that okay?
I think at least in Swedish, like, there's a lot of like borrowed words from English.
Okay.
And there we see the bicycle.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Very good, Martina.
Yeah, sort of crouching in the middle of the wall somehow at that angle. Great footwork from Martina. She's read that beautifully. Found a great position.
And now she's into the section that kicks back very steep. This becomes between like 70 to 75 degrees overhung.
Yeah, these holes almost look like they're in a very short section of wall that's horizontal, and that's spat her off. Frustrated with that, you could hear the roar from her. Wanted to go further up into that route. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see the upper section of this route, but you don't predict many athletes will make it into this upper section, or at least top the route.
We hope so.
Yeah.
We had in qualies we had quite like a lot of very strong females.
Yeah.
We had Julia Shunadi, we have Laura Regora.
Yes.
So we had, I think, 5 or 6 athletes that topped both of the qualification routes. So especially the women's semi, we had to tweak up quite a lot.
Okay.
To make sure that we create a good separation. I think notably the entire start section was reset to make it just more tension, more activation.
Okay.
Because what we really see from the qualies is that these girls, when they have a chance to relax, they'll take any chance they get. Okay. Any weird position that you think, this is not possible, the athletes will prove you wrong in an instant.
Nature of the beast, that, isn't it? There's, yeah, they've got such skill sets these days. It's remarkable what they pull out the bag on the wall in a moment.
Now we have our first Nordic competitor coming out. Sunniva Övre Eide.
You'll have a keen eye for that. And for the men, I believe we've got our first Oh, we've got a German athlete on the map. Try and update my scores. See where we're at. So Phil Atamola from Germany. Yeah, there's a good Nordic championships, is there not, in between your neighbouring countries?
There's a little bit of friendly competition, you know.
Yeah.
It goes always, you know. It's the Swedes and Danes have beef. The Swedes and the Norwegians have beef.
Yeah.
I say beef, quote unquote. You know,
Yeah,
it's all in good fun.
Yeah.
But here,
Good competitive beef. That's all good.
exactly. But the national teams in the Nordic countries, they train together quite a lot, which is very good.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, historically, we've lagged behind the rest of Europe a bit, but it seems like the level is getting higher and higher.
Yeah, I mean, you have some amazing training facilities in the likes of Stockholm. I guess maybe cities like that become a central focus for Nordic athletes. Is that right? Are there certain gyms that the
Yes.
athletes gravitate to?
There's definitely, we notice more and more in the recent, in the past 2 years even, that a lot of the national team athletes have started either living together or
Okay.
being in the same city so that they can have even better training possibilities.
That's great.
Because as we've seen both from the route setter side and the coaches side, is that the more training sessions you can have with people that are close to your level, the more that you'll lift everyone up.
I imagine. Yeah, that makes really good sense. And then if you're in close proximity to one another and with the route setters,
Oh
then
no.
that's an early fall from Sunniva.
But I mean, we saw the first athletes cruise through this first section into this 2-squatter volumes, but
Yeah.
it's definitely deceiving. It's very easy to make mistakes, and a lot of the holds are blocked so that you think you can take with 2 hands and match, but really you only have room for 1 hand.
Okay.
We'll see how Finn does for the dynamic portion here. There is actually a static solution for this that involves a pretty heinous drop knee.
Okay.
Yes.
And he's put it in.
And there we see the first one.
Almost on your request.
Yep.
Wow,
We'll see.
incredible timing. Yeah, that looked like a very extreme angle for his left leg, but he managed to make it work. And obviously countering his right foot. His right foot, is he standing on something with any texture, or is it one of these smooth covers to the bolt hangers themselves?
Right now he's just kind of smearing on the volume as is.
No, prior, when he puts that left drop knee in, what's...
Nah, it's just, I think he finds the small edge between the blocker and the hold that he's holding.
Okay.
And really just, you see his knee went completely vertical. And now we'll see how he handles this next part. Hopefully he clips from...
It'll become harder to clip as he moves right.
Yes.
Has he not read that this is becoming footless? So if he leaves that clip so far behind, unless he can clip it on the upper left hold from the next volume, I mean, you know this in detail. I imagine you've got an idea whether that can work for him.
It can work, but it's much more difficult. You have to reach down quite a bit in this position to clip.
At some stage, if he does not clip, then there will be a point on the route chosen to be his high point. Can he reach it from there? That's the question. Looks like he's going to reel it in from the actual Dyneema that's holding the carabiner. At least he's aware of it.
He's getting quite stressed.
I imagine this is you've got to be quite handy to make that work in good fashion, and he has managed. That's excellent. Maybe he can move from left hand to right hand and recover a little bit more to make the second clip that's right by his head now before he moves further. But that's really drained him, and he's choosing to take another hold to find a better position. Wow.
Wow, okay.
Crossing under.
And there he goes.
Yeah, that sort of led him down a bit of a dead end there, really, and we'll see what that score that leaves with him in momentarily.
It's quite interesting because if you clip the one that he missed from the lower position, it's really quite easy, but I think it's very...
I feel like no matter how experienced you are, it's easy to miss those, no?
Yeah. We saw it with the previous athlete as well when he tried to clip from the black crimp lower.
Okay.
You think it'll be easier, but really the body position drops down so much that it becomes a much more physical clipping position and burns much more energy. But now we have another athlete made it very far into the route. It's a little stressful.
Yeah, I imagine. So we have, for the men, we have Felix from Austria standing out in front with 40 plus, followed by Finn, who we've just watched climb on 37, and then finally Stefan from Czech on 31. Let's look who's going to join us. So we'll have our first Italian athlete, Gianluca Vignetti from Italy. And we have our first British athlete. I keep adding a syllable to the word athlete. Strange. Force of habit, I need to get out of that. So we have Hannah Kerr from Great Britain. Just setting off for her semi-final attempt. So I'm not seeing any competitions in Hannah's previous calendar year actually to date. So maybe she's focusing on lead and this is her first lead outing of 2025. See how she copes with this route. There are some steep walls in the UK for her to train on. In particular Ratho in just outside of Edinburgh, which has a upper section which can be articulated all the way out to horizontal actually, or even a negative angle. So quite an extreme training centre for people who want to climb on overhanging walls. Not sure exactly where she's based in the UK. And then Gianluca from Susa, only 16 years of age. And again, looking like a lead specialist. No competitions on his competition calendar this year, so this might be his first outing as well.
Wow, very flexible. It's an impressive splits position to hold.
Yeah, I mean, the mobility and flexibility side of climbing is one of those aspects of the sport that has become far more, I would say, professional, because it will have been part of much more professionalized sports for so much longer. And now sort of seeing the generation after me come through and watching some of the mobility drills that they do and some of the stretching regimes that they have outside of their climbing specific training, finding positions like that on the wall has become like a more regular occurrence within the sport. Great to see. I'm sure that only bodes well for recovery and for longevity as well.
Yes. And especially with options for solving problems or different situations.
Oh, very true. Yeah.
Just increases tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah, not just relying on force. Yeah, Hannah tentative here. She still managed to find the next hold. Let's see if she can make her way out left and maybe find a moment of respite in those large sort of red and yellow volumes that form the furthest left part of the women's route. So she's into a, is it a two finger pocket here with the left hand, or no, she's managed to get 3.
I think she has 3.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's very 3-dimensional climbing, but ultimately with the heel on.
Holy crap, what a drop knee.
Yeah, that's deep. He's going to become known for his flexibility at this rate, Gianluca. Oh, and it hasn't done him any favours. Yeah, that is unfortunate. I wonder if you sink too deep into that and you don't sort of establish a body position that allows you to sort of eject out of it enough, then yeah, you don't take enough with the left hand perhaps on the next hold. So even though it's good and you're in a stable position with your feet, your center of gravity is too low perhaps.
Yeah, I think at least for him, like the timing between releasing the drop knee and applying a lot of horizontal force with the left foot was a little bit too slow.
Okay. As Simone Reina, the master of ceremonies here at Campitello di Fassa, asks the Italian crowd for a round of applause for Gianluca before he departs.
But I mean, that is an incredibly impressive position to be able to hold.
Yeah.
Like, my knees are cracking just looking at this.
Oh, my hip's aching. Yeah. Yeah, let's just catch a replay of this. He managed to readjust it. I think his right foot came away from the wall at a moment that was completely unexpected to him, and he acknowledged it in the moment, but there was just no recovery or not enough tension to recover that position on the wall.
Yeah.
Super unfortunate, but that's with so many moves, and like a bouldering competition where you can make that slip and then pull back on, within a moment and retry. You have no margin for error here, and as one of those slips without sufficient force in other areas to maintain the position on the wall, and you're off. It's quite cruel.
But still, at least for his first season as a senior at 16, this is quite a good performance to be in semis already.
So we have Emily Scott from Australia joining us, and we have Samo Golobo from Slovenia. Golob, excuse me.
Because if I'm not mistaken, this is actually the first season where athletes from Australia and other countries are also allowed to compete within the European Cup Series.
Yeah, I'm aware of them, being allowed to compete, of course. I'm not sure whether it's the first season. I'm not informed on that. But it's incredible to see athletes from Australia traveling all this way to compete here.
Yeah.
And we welcome them with open arms. Yeah, Intercontinental Cup it should be called.
Right.
Yeah, the Australian climbing scene is a rich one. It's got great history. There's great crags outside of Sydney, and there's the Blue Mountains outside of Melbourne. And yeah, imagine sport climbers in their droves coming from Australia. What's the furthest afield that you've performed route setting duties, Nicken? Are you mainly based in Europe, or?
So far, mainly based in Europe.
Okay.
It's been, this is my second season as an IFSC route setter. Last year, I had the pleasure to set the Senior Lead Cup in Augsburg, as well as the Junior Lead Cup that was held in Dornbirn.
Okay. Both German competitions?
German and Austrian.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we met first at Element Boulders in Munich when you were one of the guest setters there. It was a route setter competition, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct.
Quite hot competition, actually. Yeah, some great boulders went up that day.
It was a very fun weekend.
Yeah. So, wow. Walking his feet through here, Samo. Yeah, and this is that position of compression on these oblong black volumes, which represents a moment of security before he has to choose a method for this next move up to the hexagonal volume above his head.
Be interesting to see which solution he chooses. If he goes for the dyno, which is a little bit more insecure, or if he goes for the drop knee again. And he looks like the drop knee.
He's looking for it, yeah. Oh, wow.
And wow.
Nice. Adapted his method mid-fly. Didn't like the drop knee. Maybe his body was telling him no, and he's managed to flick through that move with relative style. Didn't look uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Emily taking a moment of horizontal respite with her heel on that curved yellow hold. Not seen so much of this next section of this route, so my eyes are sort of trained on Emily now to see how she transitions up into this large yellow hold above her head. Meanwhile, Samo's managing to clamp these volumes that you were predicting the athletes would go footless on. They're all managing to find a way to keep their feet walking through the back of the wall or clamp the volumes in the horizontal section.
It's always kind of the trickiest part of creating campus sequences is that the athletes are incredibly good at finding any ways to not have to campus.
Yeah.
So it can be very hard to force, especially... Oh, wow.
Oh,
I think the hold that he went to is a little bit deceiving in how it is. It's quite turned down into an undercling position.
okay.
So you need to come in and the body position and the hips need to be quite high for you to feel like you can utilize it well.
Yeah, that makes sense. He looked a bit extended, didn't he? His left arm was quite straight, actually, as he reached that hold. So even though he looked like he had enough height.
And now we see how Emily does this next section.
Whoa.
Ah, bummer.
Yeah, didn't get a chance to get her teeth into that next hold, did she, really? She looked at full extension and, yeah, didn't look like she was going to hold that for a moment, actually, unfortunately. So both athletes down within a moment's notice of one another. We'll get ready to welcome the next climbers out. So it looks like we'll have Otto Ritter from Germany for the men.
And so here we see his mistake into the left hand. Yes.
Ah.
So he actually just grabbed the no-tex of the hold and didn't actually make it onto the part with friction.
That's cruel. We know these climbers are managing to hold all sorts, you know, standing on no-tex, even holding no-tex in for moments, but when it's that extreme and you've got to get so much out of your hands in such a steep section of wall, it's one of the deciding factors as to whether you will be on the wall or off it. So you're getting a bit of a view of the sort of outdoor amphitheatre here in Campitello di Fassa at the Adele climbing wall. I mean, we have the most incredible backdrop for a climbing competition you could ask for. We are in the heart of the Dolomites. We are surrounded on all sides by mountains. You see the sort of rock spires of the Dolomites peeking out in every direction that you look. Beautiful location for a competition, and at this time of year we're very glad to be at some altitude, I can tell you.
Absolutely.
Much like the rest of Europe and even Great Britain, we've had heat wave in, I would say, the last 2 weeks, and we went from wearing jackets in the evenings in Italy to shorts and t-shirts and no more. It's up to above 30 degrees in some of the northern cities even, and being here at altitude with a good breeze coming through the stadium, I think everyone would be very grateful for these climbing conditions today.
Yes, it really makes all the difference.
I mean, we've got a variety of materials on the wall here, but I'm going to say every climbing material favours cool conditions. I mean, polyurethane, there's a lot of polyurethane holds used in competitions these days, and I find actually having a bit of moisture in the skin helps my personal friction on these types of holds. I have particularly dry skin, and so if you're in my category, then you will want a bit of humidity. But it's quite dry here today.
But now we see already the temperature is slowly ticking up. So I think for the later competitors, it could be substantially hotter than it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be in the hot seat for a while. Unless you get called off to perform any maintenance on these routes.
Hopefully not.
Let's hope not. Yeah, yeah.
If we've done our job correctly, then I should be fine to sit around and watch.
Yeah. No, glad to have you here. That's thanks for joining me. Great to get your insights.
But Otto is looking very comfortable. Oh, it's not always so easy with this no-tex. It's
Absolutely. Yeah, he's ultimately with his right foot he's standing on no-tex and his left foot he's smearing on the wall, and his third point of contact is a reasonable undercut for his right hand. But still, yeah, a moment's respite in his concentration. Or lack of tension through the foot somehow, and he could be off, but you know, he's looking comfortable there and just assessing his next movements. Seems to have a reasonable amount in the tank, this young man. Looking forward to see what he does with the next section.
He looks very relaxed right now.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
But as we know in route climbing, I mean, this can change in an instant.
Absolutely.
One small mistake and the stress can just skyrocket.
I was thinking that.
We'll see how Emma deals with this feet first section that's coming up soon.
So, two compatriots on the wall at the same time here. Emma just a little bit behind Otto on the wall in terms of height gained. But she's also looking reasonably comfortable here.
She looks very relaxed as well. I mean, she's been able to chalk on every hold so far. A lot of climbers are compulsive chalkers. You chalk up even when you don't really need to, but...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a moment of assessment or in a moment of rest, you might as well, no?
Exactly.
I mean, it's very hard to put too much on with a lead climbing chalk bag. I mean,
wow. The double heel.
And Otto's out wide on the left and choosing to just climb back into the lower position before continuing on out right into this possible footless section. Let's see what he does with it. I'd like to see someone actively choose to go footless just for the pure pleasure of those moves. But no, he's choosing as safe a method as he can find, clamping the volumes, crossing underneath with his left. Oh, wow, just taking something on the edge of the volume there to make the move around. Yeah, he looks comfortable even in this very physical section. So we're in a commentary box which is just out and above the amphitheatre. We have a great direct line of sight, so we're not just relying on our monitors, so we can catch a live view of these climbers. And I'm surprised to see him go. He just didn't get on with it quick enough, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if that's an accurate assessment, whether he'll feel like he should have moved a bit quicker there, but...
It seems the body position was slightly off. Like, ideally, you want to have both feet over to the right side, so you can get very high into the position. I think it's quite easy for route climbers to prioritize various heel hooks and toe hooks to try and, oh wow, and Emma comes into the next portion. Oh.
Looks like the route really kicks in there.
Yeah. I mean, even the holds up there, they're quite good. On any other angle, they would be jugs, but...
Yeah, absolutely.
On this overhang, they're substantially worse.
Yeah, both off angle. You're not pulling directly down on them. You've got a little bit of a rotation to both holds, exposing the empty end of the hold, which you can come out of with your right or your left hand. Let's see how our results stand. So Felix still standing out in front with 40 plus in the men's category. Meanwhile, Emma Bernhard from Germany with 39 plus after 7 athletes have passed.
Now we have our first Belgium athlete of the competition coming out for the men.
Yeah, 17 athletes remain. Arno Loufparat from Belgium. Please do apologize if I'm butchering that surname. And Nika Portapova from Ukraine. They are the 8th climbers to step out onto this semi-final stage of the IFSC European Cup. The first round of 3 competitions, which actually span the calendar year almost. The last one being at the beginning of November.
Yes.
So stay tuned throughout the year if you want to catch the next 2 rounds of this competition in particular and see who's crowned the European Cup champion for 2025.
He looks quite tensed already.
Some people do have less fluid styles of climbing and are quite, not, I won't say robotic, but quite direct and hold body positions that are quite straight, I would say.
Yes. It's all about how much power you want to use to compensate for the technique that you don't want to use.
Yeah. I remember my climbing mentor always telling me with route climbing to think pink and only apply. That was the mantra that he had. Only apply as much force as you need to stay on the wall and don't over grip. Because obviously you don't want to waste any force that you possess that you could carry into the upper section of the climb, and that might actually allow you to complete it, and otherwise might drain you and lead to a fall. But if you have bags of it, why not use it?
Now we see Nika coming into the overhang section. Now is when the intensity. And she makes the clip.
I still can't believe that that wall's 50 degrees looking at it from this angle. It's
always the classic with climbing media, right? Like you're climbing something and it's very hard for you or extremely overhang, and then you take a video and it looks almost vertical.
Yeah. No, these close camera shots just don't do the angle justice, do they? And it's very hard actually for our camera team to get anything from the right-hand side because the rest of the Adele climbing gym here in Campitello di Fassa is the sort of building to the right-hand side of this outdoor structure. So hard to get an angle and see how steep it is from that side, but maybe we'll get some shots from the left in due course.
Very strong. Good job for Arno.
Nice, so heel in, making the clip in a very good position there. And this next one.
And he goes back to the jug.
Nice. I mean, it's deceiving from here. Looks like he could reach up and clip the next, but I don't think he can from that position. You need to take the next hold. So we've only seen one Italian athlete step out to attempt their route so far. I've got a little soundbite from the Italian Federation's Instagram. They're obviously overjoyed to see 6 Italians in the semi-finals of this European Lead Cup in Campitello.
Wow, interesting. That's not really a hold, Arno.
He's going to give it a try anyway. Yeah, very high right heel, which is the first time we've seen that utilised in this position. Let's see how he can move out of it. He's obviously got to leave enough room for the right hand to match and also not remove his right hand by taking his right heel out of position.
Nice. He digs in. He really finds the hold there.
Very precise footwork there. Very precise climbing from this young man. Excellent. I mean, he seems to be climbing into this upper section in good form here.
He looks quite fresh still.
Yeah. Bravo, Arno. Come on. Another use of the right heel high.
Nice. And Nika sticks this, and the first athlete to come into this portion of the wall.
Wow, big adjustment there. I thought he'd taken it well in the first instance, but he really moved his body higher to adjust on that crimp. What is the sequence here? Is it a cross underneath with the left to the pinch?
Yes.
And he's not fancied his chances at that method, so he's tried to go all the way out to the crimp on the extreme right of that sort of hexagonal volume, which is the last wooden volume that's been used on this route before the ultimate one, which is adjacent to the chain.
Nice. Come on, Nika. It's looking very strong so far, but now it's a very powerful section here at the top.
This really lets you know how steep the wall is. Look at this camera angle we have here. Yeah. Nika almost horizontal in her body position there, but she's got a high point, I'm sure.
That must feel very good for her.
Yeah, excellent work.
Because now we see that she entered the portion of the route where this is really going to be the ranking section, as we say. That hopefully we can start to divide the top athletes and give us a good result going into the finals.
Yeah, you've still got between 6 and 7 hand movements to the top there, maybe. I don't know. I'm not having watched that. I don't have that insight. But
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay,
8 more moves.
So Nika has now scored 43 plus, and she's at the top of the women's rankings of this semi-finals. Meanwhile, for the men, Felix is holding his position with 40 plus, as we will welcome the 9th climbers out onto the mats. We will have Magdalena Kompian from Austria and Christoph Hanek from Germany momentarily. So Christoph's had a couple of competitions already this year. 27th of April, he was out at the World Cup in Wujiang, where he placed 31st. And funnily enough, he placed 31st also in the World Cup of lead climbing in Bali the following month.
Very consistent.
Must only be very consistently 31st. Let's see what you can do today, Christoph. Already into the top 24, of course, as a semi-final competitor. We have 24 male and 24 female athletes here competing to make it to this evening's finals. Magdalena, another climber who has not competed in the IFSC circuit so far this year. She did complete back end of 2024 in August and twice in September. One of those competitions was here in Italy, actually, in Bologna at level 24, and that was the IFSC European Cup, which they hosted, of course, of lead climbing. Level 24 is actually a 24-meter route climbing structure in Bologna.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible gym.
Tall.
Yeah, incredible gym to enter. I mean, I'm not aware of any gyms as tall. That's not a typical height for a climbing gym. It's a real experience walking into that room on the upper balcony for the first time and looking down on the wall from the top level. It's remarkable, really, to think that structure's indoors and available for climbers in the Emilia-Romagna region to train on. Most of these routes just do not require that amount of stamina. It's a great way of being overly fit, so you've got more in the tank, I believe, but it's a very different structure to this, like the Campitello di Fassa structure. Obviously, especially these portions that we're climbing through here with these climbers, much steeper. The structure in Bologna at level 24 is more contemporary, I would say, and continuously overhanging, but maybe maximum 30 degrees or 35 degrees.
But it looks like Christoph is moving very well through this lower section.
Yeah, it was swift work. Just getting a closer read on the next section of climbing, isn't he? All of the guys stopping in that position for a moment. Oh, wow, and he's just
easily
bust up into the left
swing.
hand. Yeah. And as you say, I mean, he kicked his foot back in, but it didn't look out of control for a minute.
I think Christoph, I mean, he trains with Alex Migos a lot, but an incredibly physically strong climber.
Yeah, he looks a slightly bigger frame than Magos. Powerful climber, clearly, with the execution of that move. No need to flick out to the right hole to control it. Yeah, very competent in that position.
And now we see how he solves the next part. So he opts to skip this clip.
Oh, he's clipping it here.
Yeah.
That was a very fast clip, very precise. Is that a hard hole to clip from?
It's more hard because the body position is lower than what you think is. You're lower down than when you're holding onto the green hold. But it's still doable.
And Christoph has satisfied your desire for an execution of the intended beta with footless climbing, turning to face the crowd for a moment before rotating underneath.
This is rough.
Is he wrong-handed here?
Yes, he's put himself into a very strange position.
He's really having to fight. And
Yeah.
it's because he's purely read that pinch that the other climbers are using with their right hand as a heel hook and not tried to return to it with his hand.
It seems that way.
Maybe we'll catch a replay of that as we just switch all of our attention to Magdalena here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how much the quick draw there is hanging down, it's incredibly steep.
Yeah, that's your point of reference, isn't it? That's your plumb line vertical reference.
Oh, very good effort from her.
Yeah, that's just shy of the previous competitor now. I think that will be 1 point less. So might well sit her in second place.
Well, I think I'm going to go find the rest of the route setting team, and we can start discussing the finals a little bit.
Super.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's
it was
been a pleasure. Yeah, thanks for joining me.
And yeah, good luck to the rest of the athletes, and I'll I'll see you guys for finals.
Superb. Looking forward to it. So now we poise to welcome the 10th athletes into the stadium. We will have Julia Benach Zubero from Spain and Luca Nudel from Germany. Well, here in Campitello di Fassa we have the sun beating down on the crowd that has gathered in the amphitheatre in front of the climbing wall, and you can just see the first bits of sun hitting the German climber Luca Nudel as he assesses the route before pulling on. Meanwhile, Julia is straight onto the wall and making her way through the first section of this climb. As Luca launches into the start of this. Just looking a little bit unsure of himself on that foot. But he seems to have transitioned very well. Not looking in any danger of coming off the wall at all there. Wow, meanwhile Julia on the right hand side of your screens, stepping right out into the splits position to gain relative stability before getting into these sort of slopey yellow macros. And you can see she's managed to just leap into this screw on very precisely. Just putting her quite often left for this clip though. She's just struggling to, well, she would have used a lot of energy there to make that clip work in that position. I've been out on the left hand side of the commentary box, and as such I've had a better line of sight to the male route and to the display of the men's route on the extreme left of our screen, but now I'll have the opportunity to see some more of the climbing at the start of the women's route. So Julia moving into this undercut and making this clip relatively comfortably. Yeah, really powering up into this steeper section of the wall now. And finding the precise part of that hold to grasp with the right hand. Quite a complicated pattern of climbing holds here. Not sure that would be the easiest pattern of holds to read from the ground, knowing exactly where to take, but she's progressing nicely, moving quite quickly through this section actually. We've seen other female climbers pause before managing to flick their left foot out left and place that heel hook. She's moved very quickly through that, which I think is a very efficient method of doing that. She finds herself beneath this large yellow volume. She found a good heel hook, and she's found the pocket beneath it. As we now get we get a camera angle of the entire wall there, so you can see relatively where one athlete is to the other, just in the same moment that Luca falls from the route. And I don't think he's going to place particularly well, seeing that he's not made it into this upper section of the wall. We've seen quite a lot of the male climbers progress quite high into this route already. No tops, of course, yet. I think he'll be particularly well placed based on that. I'm not sure what spat him off the wall. Maybe we'll get a replay in between now and the other athletes coming out to join us. But we're now back with Julia as she moves into this really steep section and going footless for a moment there. Looked like she had the power to hold it, and she did for a moment. Looked like she was going to manage to get her feet back into the wall and stabilize before making another movement, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. Her foot didn't stay, and she's off. to see a replay here. Maybe we'll see this exact moment where... So a foot slip from the no-text block. That's maybe unsettled him. And then, yeah, just quite a tense but almost wild rotation there. And without finding the foot underneath himself to stabilize, he's been thrown off due to the sort of the rotational nature of that jump into the left-hand hold there. So the 11th athletes of this 24 athlete field to join us. Luna Deschez from France, and we have Gorzad Jurkovic from Slovenia. So the Italian Federation was excited to announce that 6 standard bearers will be going to work in this today's semi-finals. We've still got 5 of those Italian climbers to join us. So focusing on the women's route here, as Luna makes a quicker start than Gorazd. Not exactly a formality, but looks like fairly steady movements for these women at the start of this route. Nothing too tenuous. It's just establishing them on the wall, giving them a few movements under their belts before they really push up into this next section, this second white section of the wall, which is that much steeper again. The wind's really whipping through the stadium now. Really catching quite a lot of it in this commentary box, so even though the outdoor temperatures crept up to just shy of 24 degrees, I think the sort of perceived temperature on the wall is going to be less than that. The climbing structure's very open-sided. I can't imagine that it's holding much heat in there. You can see the Val di Fassa flag on the extreme right is waving in the breeze, and that's deep into the climbing stadium itself, so I'm sure these climbers are experiencing that as they make their way up the wall. Gorazd looking powerful in that move as he takes this right-hand pinch, getting himself into this traverse section of this climb with relative ease. So these routes both cover really quite some meters. They're far from direct lines up the wall, especially the men's, with this traverse section really adding quite a requirement for endurance from these guys compared to the routes of the qualifications yesterday. And we've had some excellent performances on Italian soil from the French climbing team. I've attended several competitions this year where French climbers have placed first, second and third. We had the European Cup of Boulder at climbing wall in Rome called Monkey Island, and the male team from France placed positions 1 to 4, in fact. It was complete French lockout, and fortunately Stella, a young lady from Italy, managed to break that lockout in the women's field. She placed second, took the silver medal, and she was flanked by 2 French female climbers who took first and third respectively. But now we're into the lead climbing season. For the most part, this competition, one of the first European Cup. So a little wobble there from Gorazd as he moves into this steep section, managing to clamp the feet. Looks like he's struggling though. He's screaming and fighting. Come on. Oh, powerful stuff from him. I thought he was going to find that pinch, but no, he's just shy. Didn't make anywhere near enough of a move to look in danger of holding that next pinch, but he looked good in that position. Just ran out of steam, ran out of power in the arms, I think. And he's been spat off in the steepest section of the route. So I'm just going to return to our rankings and give you a brief update. So in the men's field, Felix still standing out front with 40 plus. And that attempt from Gorav from Slovenia has put him in 7th place. So just inside the semi-finals. But there's still many climbers to come, remember. We have had 11 climbers join us today already. We have another 13 to go. And then looking at the women's rankings, the Ukrainian athlete Nika Portapova is out in front with 43 plus, just tipping Magdalena Kompian's 42 plus. And now our 12th climbers to join us, Michelle Huliger from Switzerland and from Czech Republic, Simon Pociek. Just got an update there from of our top 10 from this competition, as these climbers set off with intentions of disrupting that upper section of the field, try and make this evening's finals, which will commence from 5:45 this evening, Central European time, here at the Adel climbing wall in Campitello di Fassa. So this competition seems to be progressing beautifully. We've got quite a nice separation so far throughout the climbers, and true to Nicken and the route setters' intentions, the women's route seems to be much more difficult than the qualification routes were. I'm hoping in these latter stages of the competition we're going to see some of the women move further into the steeper section of wall. So we know from Nicken's comments that the route setters adapted the difficulty of these routes last night. And from this point onwards for Simon, unfortunately for him, some of these holds have been blocked. So if you can train your eye closely, you'll see that he can't make the very most of some of these shapes on the wall, as there have been additional holds used to obscure some of the more usable parts from his grasp, as he comfortably stands on this nose texture foothold. Managed to just chalk up, setting up on these two oblong wooden volumes with opposing green holds. This has looked like a relatively secure position for everyone, but we know what's to come here. He's got a couple of options in front of him. See what he chooses to take. So he's up to the crimp and he jumps through, and he's held that with plenty of time and control. Yeah, look very comfortable in that position. This Czech climber is going particularly well, I would say. Crossing over the top. Yeah, nice use of body position there, really. You know, taking that hold in ideal fashion given his center of gravity and most of his mass being over to the left. Wow, and even chalking up on this small yellow crimp, just setting himself up for the next sort of complicated sequence of movements. We've got a beautiful view now of the entire wall in front of us, with this sort of trunk section in the climbing wall where the The routes almost kiss one another before the men's route heads up and left and the women's heads up and right. Michelle Linger from Switzerland here, choosing to create force with her left toe there before adjusting it to her heel. And she's really bunched up in that position, managed to reach the pocket. Yeah, excellent climbing here. And not struggling with this position at all. Crossing over the top with the right hand. Taking that slopey volume on its right hand edge and making the clip. Yeah, she's looking good here. Oh, but she's off. Oh, that's incredibly unfortunate. I'm not sure exactly what's led to that. I've missed the moment which she came off the wall precisely. See if we'll catch a couple of replays of these as both athletes are almost off the wall within moments of one another. So big shout out to the route setting team here in Campitello di Fassa. I think they've done an excellent job here. Really enjoying watching these climbers progress on these routes. Yeah, so she, in this replay, managed to get the splits and tried to put the bicycle in the sort of opposing left and right foot. And just maybe fallen a little bit short with the right hand on the match. Because other than that, body position and footwork look excellent there from that Swiss climber, but I think maybe just fallen short with the right hand on that slopey dish of a hold. She's just not got enough of it under her fingertips to maintain contact with the wall. That's unfortunate. So, we have a crowd favourite, and number 13 in the women's field to step out onto the mats, Claudia Gazolfi. Incredible. Looking forward to watching her climb on home soil. And for the men, we have Peter Kurik from Slovakia. So I've not had the opportunity to watch Claudia climb live. So yeah, all eyes on her. Really intrigued to see how this athlete climbs on home soil. I believe she's based over in Torino. So other side of the country from Campitello di Fassa. We're sort of northeast, about 70 kilometers from Trento, northeast into the Dolomites here. Torino being the extreme west of Italy, prior to heading out to France, of course. Claudia might have the advantage of having competed at this structure before, so she might know what she's dealing with. She's obviously got home crowd advantage. Can potentially add an element of stress, but she's an experienced competitor. She seems to be moving confidently. Now she's transitioning into the second angle of the wall, this sort of steep 45, 50 degree section. Come on, Claudia. Everyone is more than rooting for you here. So again, Claudia not having competed this season in an IFSC lead climbing competition, or boulder for that matter. She is a lead specialist. She has competed in the odd boulder competition here and there. For example, back in 2023 when Italy hosted the IFSC World Cup of Bouldering in Brixen. She was on the mats for that competition. But for the major part of her appearances, it's all in lead climbing. Her last competition was the European Championships in Villars back in September of 2024, where she placed 33rd. Obviously, already being in semi-finals of this competition, she's secured position 24 or less as she progresses up this wall. Wow, really bunching here and using her heel directly in front of her by the looks of things. Sorry, Peter, I'm completely ignoring your beautiful attempt on men's semi-final route here, focusing on the home athlete. Please forgive me as we see Claudia move past the previous competitor's high point. She's managed to match that hold underneath beautifully. She's looking really confident in her moves, actually. Really liking it, but it kicks in here. We know it does. Powerful here. She holds the swing and she's got her feet back on. Right foot on. And she's made the next hold and she's got the opposition of the volume out behind her. Wow, this is incredible stuff from Claudia. And she still looks like she's got plenty more to give. She's actually chalking up in this steepest section of the wall. And I believe she's got to make a clip below. And she's got a clip above, which needs to come pretty soon. But she's going to attempt another hand move. She's got a good handful of this ball and a good left heel. And I really hope she finds a stable position here to clip from. But she's going to move out. We've got 44. That must be another 44 plus, I feel. I think that could move Claudia into joint first position. Let me just review our scores. Incredible effort. I mean, she's come out onto the mats in 13th position. Unlucky for Sim, but not for Claudia today. 43 plus confirmed, which puts her, with count back to the qualification round, in first position ahead of Nika Portapova from Ukraine. I mean, we've got plenty of athletes to go, but that puts Claudia in an excellent position to potentially make finals. And of course, being here in Italy, it'd be great to see some of the local climbing scene make it through to finals for the atmosphere of this evening's competition. As we focus back in on Peter, as he is about to exit the steepest part, but he can't make it work. Fewer hand adjustments there, and the ultimate adjustment leading to his demise on the route. He's taken a fall there, and don't think that's going to leave him in a particularly strong position. So yeah, men's route is particularly competitive in this upper section, and Peter now resides in 8th position. So a preliminary finals position in the bag, but yeah, with the amount of climbers to come and their performances from the qualification round of this competition, which were held yesterday here at the Adele climbing wall, I don't fancy his chances of retaining that. I think it's only a matter of time. So we've crept above 24 degrees here in the shade, and the humidity keeps on dropping. So I think we were around 48% an hour or so ago, and now it's looking like 37%, so a very, very dry conditions with this breeze. We had a lot of rain here last night, actually. That will have really cleared the air. So now we have our 14th climbers to step out to attempt these semi-final routes. We have Younes Aubert Massimodi from France, and we have Clotilde Fista from France as well. So simultaneous French attempts on women's semi-final and the men's semi-final routes respectively. First time I really pay any attention to the ticking clock. It hasn't really been a factor in this competition so far, but these climbers only have 6 minutes to complete these routes. Not come close to anybody timing out. The sort of sustained nature of the climbing in both the women's and the men's climb mean that they really must press on. Nobody has really seemed to find any significant moment of rest where you would be tempted to stay in position for any longer than a few seconds. Younes Aubert Massimodi looking good here. Quite comfortable in this early section. He's actually spending some time here. more than most before making this clip and looking to move out right through the traverse section of this route, as we have Clotilde climbing competently here. Yeah, really bunching up and using both feet in the same position and then stepping out wide. Yeah, nice smooth climbing. I think we're going to see both of these climbers move high up into these routes, judging by their current output. Oh, a little foot slip there from Younes as he commits to transitioning out right. Obviously a tentative moment there, and we know those black domes which cover the sort of bolt hangers for additional quick draws which are no longer on the route. So the bolt hangers which are for the quick draws whilst this structure is set for commercial climbing, they have been covered by the route setters, but those bolt hanger covers are completely smooth, so the climbers will use them, but they're not the most secure of things underfoot. Can lead to a tentative moment, potential foot slip. So Clotilde just struggling to sort of reach out to this pocket with her left leg blocking her movement, but she's managed to make it work. Still looks in to be climbing in comfortable fashion. Meanwhile, Younes, yeah, looking really good. Yeah, this looks well within his limit so far. Oh, that's seems like a premature fall from Clotilde. Disappointed for her. She looked to be climbing particularly smoothly. She looks a little bit dismayed there. Not quite sure what happened. As we focus our attention on Younes as he comes into this footless section, and he's made it work. He's turned to the crowd and he's just rumbling through this footless, and then finally establishes feet out wide and right as the route setters intended. Yeah, he was in a really high sort of locked position with both arms. Didn't look in danger of coming off there at all. Strong young man in the horizontal section of this route, choosing this position of all to rest. He's obviously quite comfortable with what he's got underneath his hands for the moment, but we know it's just going to kick in now on this pinch sort of guppy style hold. And he's made the distance. That looked for a moment like he might be off. Looked like he'd struggled, as others have, with hitting the textured part of that hold. And yeah, I think he did misread the angle of the hold as well as the texture of the hold, but he's had a bit in the tank and managed to reel it back in. And now he's in another interesting position on the wall, sort of blocking his knee against on the inside, seeming to take some weight off here. Well, this is a very ingenious rest position. Wow, and as he cuts that knee in very flamboyant fashion, I cannot believe that was intentional, but if it was, that was bold, very bold. And he's, wow, flying through this upper section, powering through these moves, and incredible finish to this young man's semi-finals there, making the highest point on the route so far that we've seen in this male field. That was excellent climbing. I'm going to have to speak to him afterwards. Was that knee bar cut intentional? Let's see if we get a replay. You can see him powering up an earlier stage of this route. I mean, looking back, we now know this was a formality, but here's his knee bar, and I think it came out unexpectedly, and he managed to catch it just in time. And yeah, we see him in a section of the route that we've not seen any of the male climbers make it to before there, sort of choosing to, I mean, it's the first time we've seen that right hand hold in its shape. So almost like a press undercut, using the palm of his right hand, sort of putting some force up through the hold, and obviously some squeeze. So using his pinch strength there. Younes, finally somebody knocks Felix Matter from Austria off his top spot. We have Younes Albert Massimodi on 42 plus ahead of Felix on his 40 plus. And in third we have Arnaud from Belgium with 39 plus. That makes up the first three male athletes. Meanwhile, Claudia Gazolfi in the women's category is still out in front, as we welcome Mia Guttenberger from Germany and Akian Etika from France. So another French climber in the male field and another German athlete in the women's category. It might not be quite clear to the climbers who are backstage waiting their turn how far these climbers have achieved on the wall, but with the length of time that they have been out there in the stadium, it gives some indication. And I might imagine that compatriots might share a moment of notice, a comment or a smile that might lead them to know what they've got to live up to. So maybe Akian might have some indication from his compatriot Younes how far he's got to go on this route to match what he has achieved previously. Again, for a moment the wind is up. A really stiff breeze coming through now from left to right across the stadium. Of course, this is not the first international competition that this Adele climbing wall has hosted here in Campitello di Fassa. Back in 2017, there was a lead climbing competition that was the European Championships. So a standalone competition, very significant one actually, and there were some quite big names. We'll look at some of the results from that competition that was here for context, historical context in due course. Well, I'm intrigued to see how Akian can perform here as he find a moment of comfort there in that groove where the white section of wall transitioned into the blue section of wall. You've almost got a bit of a niche, and although it's still overhanging, you managed to sit in it for a moment and take pause. Wide stance on the wall from Mia Guttenberger with a toe hook that she leaves behind. And now she's turned her body and established her left heel out and high to take a lot of weight off her hands. And she hasn't struggled bunching up and to take that dish with the left hand. We've seen some of the climbers really find their leg in the way of their next hand move there. But with her flexibility and her body position, she's managed to execute that in good fashion. And she's stepping out nice and wide on the red volume as intended. And she's found a left drop knee as opposed to the right drop knee that the route setters were intending. And this is a moment of pause for her. This could really pay dividends in the later stages of this route. Meanwhile, Akian's choosing to go foot first here. I'm surprised to see that from him. I wouldn't have thought that would have been necessary. But he's trying to find every ingenious method possible to take the pressure off his hands. That's good. And he's reverted his methodology. He's back in a more familiar position for us. As Mia makes great progress into the steepest section of the women's climb. She's sort of cutting a different shape to Claudia, but she's making it work. And she's choosing to go to the slopey heel hook, which Claudia used with her left hand before managing to take this sort of ball or blocky, rounded block shape hold. But she's in good position here. You know, however she's achieved it, she's high on the route, and that's going to stand her in good stead. She's not made as much progress as Claudia did, but that was an excellent effort. It has to be said. Obviously reading the route just differently maybe not having sufficient line and length to go all the way to the left-hand hold that she finally took. So choosing to use that heel hook. Or that hold that we saw Claudia heel hook. She didn't actually touch with her hands. So, all eyes on Akian as he leaves the steepest section of this wall. He has this tricky left hand comfortably in his possession as he moves between the right pinch and the left hand dual text hold to chalk up and shake off. This looks like it could be another excellent execution on this route from a French climber. Let's see how he can cope with these next crimps. So we're transitioning from quite powerful climbing on open pinchy holds into thin crimpy holds, leaving only, you know, maybe a pad of contact with your fingertip. And he's managed the cross-through method. He's even shaking in this position, so this is very impressive stuff from him. Looking quite stable, but this is incredibly strenuous. Yeah, and there's just no... Obviously, it really kicks in there, as if the route hasn't kicked in already. You've got a potential crux move there. I can't possibly say, but it looks like he got himself into that position very well, but moving up with the left hand looked a margin above what was achievable in that moment. But excellent climbing from him. It's like he's matched his compatriot's score. Let's just review the leaderboard in the men's field as we watch a replay of that. Yeah, you can see how thin these holds are. And you just obscured the left hand there from our view, but you could see sort of hit it. There was almost a little cloud of chalk that exploded off the hold as he momentarily made contact and then fired off. That's Maya's fall. So yeah, we have scores-wise in the semi-finals, we have two French gentlemen at the top of the leaderboard tied with 42 plus, but Akian, presumably with count back to the qualification rounds, is sitting in first place. And then for the women, Maya Guttenberger has pipped Claudia Zolfi's first place with her 43 plus. So that does actually mean that her move there was identical to Claudia's high point. But she obviously just climbed those few moves prior in slightly different fashion, both achieving the same score, 43 plus. And Nika Portapova also joins those girls at the top of the women's leaderboard in third place, based on countback with 43 plus as well. So heated competition in the women's section. As we look for the 16th climbers to join us, Noah Shiran from Israel in the women's category, and now Monchois, I'm going to say actually, with a French delivery, from France. Now Monchois from France. He will be our 16th male climber to step out into the Adele climbing stadium here in Campitello di Fassa in the Italian Dolomites. Well, if you're at home here, you would be very happy as a climber or a road biker or an outdoor sports enthusiast. Prior to this competition starting, there were individuals on flying paragliders high above the stadium. I don't share much on Instagram, but I do intend on sharing that photo with friends. It was an impressive sight to behold. It's not often that you see paragliders descending on a climbing wall, at least not in my experience. So, approaching 1 minute of the 6 minutes of allotted time to these climbers. So they both seem to make steady progress on their routes respectively. So Noah Shiran from Israel, she was in competition in April of this year in the World Cup in Wujiang, again in the lead climbing discipline. Most of you will know that from following the climbing competition calendar, where she placed 26, so just outside of semi-finals. unfortunately. Let's see if she can do some more damage now that she's established herself in the semi-finals. Already going to achieve a better result than there. But how good, only time will tell. Climbing well. Seems to be making every move very certain. Quite precise. Maybe a little bit tentative, but it's hard to read anything more into her body language. As we look at now on the left-hand side, who's making faster movements. But they're both at a very similar height on the wall, but he's obviously just negotiated this traverse section of the men's climb, so he's maybe got a few more moves underneath his belt. Having said that, he's actually completed less moves on the wall, maybe just having covered more distance. Seems to be more moves per meter in this early start of the women's route. Both of these climbers are going very well. So they look quite secure in their respective positions. Now at move 29. Meanwhile, Noah at move 33. You see how much higher he is now on the wall, having only covered 32 moves. See, this route really kicks in at this point onwards. And he slipped. We've had a heel slip, and he's off. That's unfortunate. He definitely had more in the tank there. The heel slip has cost him, and maybe not going far enough with the left hand has cost him. I think he chose to use the wooden volume as a sort of measure to gain height on the wall before then pouncing again with the left hand to this infamous hold around the corner with the two sections of the texture that we've spoke about before, which obviously doesn't present itself at such a great angle and is making it that particular move particularly hard in this men's semi-finals. So Noah alone on the wall, choosing to shake in quite a powerful position there, holding this hold in the almost horizontal section of the wall with the right shaking the left, and now she's decided to engage into this upper section of the wall. This familiar sort of footless moment for the women climbers. She's just not got enough left in those forearms to maintain contact with the wall. Took the swing for a moment, but unfortunately that was short-lived and she's off. Still, excellent climbing. Let's see where that puts her in the women's rankings. So she currently resides in 5th place with 39 plus. As we just look back at this attempt. Yeah, so heel went, grasped at the wooden volume to try and maintain contact with the wall there. But yeah, just not enough under his hands. And even with the power he possesses, he didn't manage to maintain contact with the wall. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't like to see athletes come off with a slip, but it's part of the course. It's part of the nature of lead climbing. That tension that you must feel on the wall is something I don't know whether I could bear. So we can pause to look at the scoreboards. We have Claudia Gazolfi's 43 plus, sandwiched by 2 other female climbers on 43 plus, respectively, making up the 1, 2, 3 at the top of the women's leaderboard. And then for the men, we have 2 French climbers on 42 plus at the top of the male leaderboard, followed by Felix, who was out in front on 40 plus for so very long before he was pipped. So now, Zala Malka Staric from Slovenia will join us as the 17th female athlete, and Javier Cano Velasquez from Spain. Javia's first outing in IFSC competition this year. And the same for Zala. She climbed at the IFSC Youth European Championships in Troyes on the 29th of September last year, where she placed 12th. That was a lead climbing competition. Prior to that, she competed in Boulder, actually on the same weekend, so that was a strenuous weekend for Zala. She placed 13th in that competition as well. That's an incredibly impressive weekend for anyone. And then she placed first in the IFSC Youth European Cup in Osmegun. That was a lead climbing competition, so the rest of the scores on the books in more recent history are lead climbing, although she has dabbled in boulder as well earlier on in 2024. So not an out-and-out specialist, I wouldn't say, although more recently it seems to have been a lead climbing focus. Meanwhile, Javier competes in both lead and speed climbing. Not so many results on the books in recent years. A couple of competitions for him in 2024. And in 2019, he was competing in lead and speed. So maybe 2024 marked a return to competition for him. And now he's made an early start with this first round of this European Cup of lead climbing. He's obviously qualified in a good position. Coming out 17th, meaning he qualified in 8th. We've still got some big names to come though in this men's field. In particular, two very familiar Italian names, Davide Marco Colombo and Riccardo Vicentini from the Italian team. Wow, Javier's had a moment there on the footless section, but he's managed to hold it and he's pulled himself back into the wall and he's pushing on. Finding that heel hook will be a little moment of respite, and he seems, yeah, he's moved into this comfortable position to make both of these flips simultaneously from the right-hand hold. I'm not sure why more people aren't doing that. A lot of people moving to this left-hand hold, and then we've had an early exit here from Zala on the right-hand side of your screens. She was just off my focus as that happened, making 33 plus only. She places 13th so far in this semi-finals, which is outside of the qualification for finals. She'll be disappointed with that, I'm sure. Commiserations for her, as Javier finds himself footless in this horizontal section of the climb and really not sure how to place his feet for a moment. And he's tried to extend himself too much and he's off, and he's really kicking himself. He's furious, absolutely furious with that. Yeah, I think he realizes now what he should have done. And yeah, he looks devastated with that. He obviously feels like he has had a lot more to give. As he stares back up the route, yeah, it's so heart-wrenching because you do not get a chance to complete this route, no matter how much you'd like to. I mean, I know it's not a piece of rock that might be a long-term project, but still, these indoor walls with their beautifully set routes, they hold a great appeal, and if you've enjoyed the climbing up to that point, I'm sure he would relish the opportunity to have another go at completing this, especially if he feels he can. That'll be his last time on the wall there. He will not have done enough to qualify for our semi-finals, for our finals, sorry, tonight. So that leaves Javier in 13th place with that score of 32. And let's welcome the 18th climbers out on the mats. I say out on the mats, out into the stadium. Jan Stipik from Czech Republic and Ines Schwagia from Austria. Ines only with lead climbing events to her name in the IFSC records. Age of 18, 7 participations in the books. She's from Vienna and she competed 5 times in 2024. So European Cup in Dorben, European Cup in Žilina, Youth World Championships in Yuliang, the European Cup at level 24 in Bologna, and then most recently in September again the Youth European Championships in Troyes. Let's see how she gets on these steeper angles of this structure here in Val di Fassa, the Adel climbing wall. So Adel is a sports association wall, ran actually as a family business, which is really quite a touching scenario. So there are a couple and their daughter here who very competently run this wall day in, day out, and they are our hosts here for this European Cup, the first round. There of course will be another 2 rounds later in the year. This competition sort of runs alongside the IFSC World Cup of lead climbing, and of course the other disciplines are hosted throughout this latter half of the calendar year, especially speed, as the bouldering competitions almost draw to a close. Yeah, Jan looking good here. Confident Czech climber. Let's see if he's got what it takes to put him into the upper echelons of this route. Two minutes have surpassed for both of these climbers. Both at a very similar height on the wall at the moment, adjacent to one another. And it's on the extreme right of the structure, having to find a way through the steepest part of the Adel climbing structure. She's climbing well. Bunching up and managing to find that pocket. Lots of adjustment going on there, though. Wasn't so sure of that hold until she finally committed to holding it and moving through. Meanwhile, it almost looks like Jan is looking forward to getting into this steep section of the wall with the way he's sort of peering up from his position previously. Now he sort of opens up, really having to engage the shoulders to control that sort of drop into position. And he's choosing to pull back up and left. Is he going to choose a different sequence here, or is it just to establish his feet? Okay, so he's caught the right foot on the outer edge of the wooden volume, and he is using his feet well to control his movement. Yeah, really nice climbing, not committing to the full footless method of that section. And he's just powered straight up. We've seen quite a few male climbers choose to rest underneath there, and instead Jan has basically locked out that move to the poor sort of dual text round to the left. So he's climbed straight through this section without any pause for respite, and he's still looking like he's got plenty of power in the tank to boot. So let's see if he pauses on this hold or if he just continues to move. Maybe he's a bit pumped and he's finding himself needing to plow on. Either that or he's just got bags of fitness and he's not struggling at all. let's see as he now finds himself on these thin yellow crimps. I mean, it looks like it's the latter. It looks like he's got plenty in the tank, and he's made a high point. He's made a very similar high point there to previous male climbers, and that is an attempt that's worthy a round of applause that he's receiving from the crowd here in this amphitheatre here in Campitello di Fassa. That shot Jan right up into first place, making the same 42 plus that we've seen from the two previous athletes that took up the French 1-2 at the top of our leaderboard. And so Jan, having performed slightly better than those two French guys in the qualification phase, means that he now sits in first place with that effort. And didn't it look good? He looked like he had plenty coming around the lip. Plenty to give. Powerful move, locking off the pinch and gaining all the height that he needed to with the left hand. As we just look back at this attempt on the women's semi-final route. Not enough there. Yeah, so Ines Schwager from Austria has actually placed herself in fourth with that attempt. She's on 42 plus, just shy of the 43 plus that the top three female competitors hold. So, yeah, it's a really heated competition around the top of both the women's and the men's leaderboards at present, with the best climbers so far managing to find a very similar position on the wall and just being separated by a hold or two. As we now welcome the 19th climbers out, second British climber Zoe Petermans, and we have Darius Rapa, I believe. He's from Bucharest. 19 years of age, and he's already competed 4 times this year. Haven't seen that. So, European Cup in Munich in March, World Cup in Qiqiao, I'm butchering that, I'm sure, in China, on the 20th of April, World Cup in Wujiang, later on in April, 27th, and then the World Cup in Bali. So, very experienced World Cup athlete on the wall right now with Darius. He's placed top 30, 31st position, 42nd, 36th. Amazing results there, but invaluable experience at only 19 years of age. As we turn our attention to Zoe Petermans, sort of bunching up to place her clip on the right-hand side. Being a Brit, I'm incredibly intrigued to see how she gets on this steep wall. So he's got a number of competitions under her belt in 2025 as well. This is her 7th IFSC competition this year. The previous 6 being all boulder competitions. Let's see how she makes this transition into the sort of lead climbing world in 2025. She's an experienced lead climber as well as a boulderer, of course. Plenty of appearances on the lead climbing world circuit in 2023. Looked like she had a bit of a break from competition in 24. And she's obviously trying to do it all this year. She climbed on Italian soil in the European Cup in Rome at Monkey Island. That was back in April, when conditions were still okay down there. It was warmer than it is here today, but I imagine climbing competitions in Rome would be a bit off limits from now on with the current heat wave that we're experiencing. Zoe getting quite a lot back off that right heel actually in front of her, managing to take quite a lot of weight through the heel before crossing through to this edge that we know that's secured behind this yellow volume in front of her to make the clip. And yeah, immediately stepping out to the left sort of macro that's perched on the black volume and establishing herself in this section of climbing with these red dishes that look particularly poor. But she seems to be in a very comfortable position on this route at present. We know it's about to get very powerful. She's a powerful climber. I fancy her chances at these moves. As she stares up through the steep section of the wall, getting ready to engage. Just choosing to take that moment of rest. Looks like it's time to get on with it. As she chalks for a final time. And she's off. First thing she's got to do is clip. Big long clip out right, pulling lots of rope through. She's maintained that height with her right arm for a long time there, so that's going to sap her a bit. Takes a swing. And she looks comfortable here. She's crossed out, well, she's moved out left, and she's got her feet into position, sort of almost inverted on the wall. So she's looking very good here, I would say. Looking really quite stable, and she's gone straight up to the ball with her left hand, missing out this sort of banana-shaped hold that she's now used her left heel on. Yeah, this is going really well for Zoe. She's looking confident in these moves, especially with this. Stepping through, looking powerful in this position as she progresses up and right. Most of the other athletes have tried to move up and left, and as she does now, and looked like she might have even held that, and she sort of goes to hold her head. Feel like she definitely had more in the tank there as well, so she's given an amazing account of herself here in the women's semi-finals with that effort, and you've got to fancy her chances at that, putting her in the finals. Another 43 plus. She made a move out right to the red hold, which the other climbers have not even chosen to attempt. Maybe they've all read that as a part of the material that's used for your feet in the upper section of the climbing. Maybe if she'd made a move with her left hand first, straight off the bat, she might have had enough to hold it. Looked like she stopped on that left hand hold for a moment. And I'm very guilty of focusing on Zoe's efforts, and I have missed Darius, who has fallen from the footless section of that wall. He just didn't seem high enough with his body. He hadn't closed his arms enough to gain the relative stability that you want through that section of climbing. As we now welcome our 20th climbers out onto the mats, we have Riccardo Vicentini, from Italy. Riccardo from Mantova, which is quite a central location in Italy, just south of Verona, as you head down towards Emilia-Romagna, well, as you head down towards Bologna. And meanwhile, in the women's competition, we'll welcome out the 20th climber. If I can find our semi-final list, it is Julia Chagnorid from France. Well, I feel like there will be a moment of tension in the crowd here as we see Riccardo set off on his attempt. The music has just gotten a bit darker and a bit heavier. Maybe that's the DJ subliminally willing Riccardo to perform at his very best as he moves through this first section of the wall, just with a little foot slip there. We did hear Nicken earlier say that this transition from the first section of climbing into this traverse could prove a little bit tentative for people. We haven't seen much sign of that, but there was a split second there for Riccardo where it looked a little bit dicey. but he's back into a composed form. Meanwhile, Julia moving confidently through the first section and into the 50-degree board, I'm going to call it, the white section of the climbing wall on the right-hand side. Yeah, Ricardo being really careful to conserve his energy in a balanced fashion between left and right arm. Just cautiously moving step by step through these holds, obviously not perceiving any real threat or danger here, just making sure he does it with the utmost efficiency. I've not watched Ricardo climb live in person, and I like what I'm seeing. He's managed the campus move, I'm going to call it. I mean, it's actually a dyno, isn't it? To the left hand. He's managed it with the left hand beater, so not having to use the right hand to catch his weight. Powerful enough to just hold it off his left hand and control his body position in good fashion. And he looks comfortable again here in between these two holds. The sort of good green flake for his right and the small yellow crimp for his left. As he makes another clip successfully. Yeah, this is cautious, this is confident. This is just how he needs to be climbing to have everything left in the tank for the upper section of this wall. Really creeps onto that crimp at the highest point on that volume. And that was that's a moment. That was definitely a moment in Ricardo's climb, which will have maybe given him a little shake. That's the first signs of insecurity for him. His feet stayed on the wall, but he looked to be at the most extreme of his potential there. But he's powering through these moves now. So the pinch move is complete. He has taken the left-hand hold with the dual text without any issue. He's locked to it from the right-hand pinch. And that was a very dynamic, powerful cross-through from Ricardo, but he's still on the wall. And it absolutely doesn't matter. It looks like a bit of pump setting in now. And he's chosen to completely wrap that hold with his right hand to try and get as much back. I think he's really feeling it now in those forearms. But he's managed to make the move to the crimp. So he's high on the route now. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, he's snatched 2 more moves and a plus from those final moments of his climb. And that does stand him in good stead. Has he done enough? So that 40 plus puts Ricardo in 4th position. And there are exactly 4 climbers to come. That's great news for him. This means that he can't be squeezed out of finals. Excellent stuff from him. We will have a male athlete in the finals of this European Cup first round 2025 here at the Adele climbing wall in Campitello di Fassa. As we're back with Julia, oh, and she just comes off the wall. And with such high scoring women on our leaderboard at present, not sure how that's going to stand her. She could be pushed out of finals. She has a 42 plus, but she resides in 5th position. So if the next 4 women climbers go further than her, she might be squeezed out. Let's see if she can maintain her position. The next half an hour or so will be very tense for her as she watches the next climbers come out. Meanwhile, we have a look at Ricardo's fall. Oh, he's done awfully well there. Really impressed with that from him. Looking forward to seeing him in the finals. And then, of course, now we have 1 more Italian athlete in the men's field and 2 more Italian athletes in the women's field to come out. We're about to introduce Laura Rogora from Italy in the women's category. And in the men's, we have Mikel Aisia Linecarso Molina from Spain. But Laura's not wasted any time. She's skipping up the first section of the women's wall. She's far, far, far ahead of the Spanish climber. There was obviously no doubt in her mind about what to do at the start of this route, and she's just pulled on and got on with it. She qualified in 4th, as did Mikel, who's just about to make his start. And his clock starts now. So Laura's 35 seconds into her attempt ahead of him. She's taken a good while to have a look at the route before he set off. Obviously wasn't sure about some aspects of it. Now Laura is one of the only competitor who competed here in 2017 in the European Championships. So she's the only athlete who could potentially gain a title here in this competition and continue a good streak of form at this structure in Campitello di Fassa. Moving rapidly through the first section, finds herself underneath this section of triangles, wooden volumes. Sort of beautiful pattern on the wall, just giving us a more aesthetic nature to the climb and giving the climbers quite a few different foot options to think about as they progress with their bodies above these small triangular volumes. Laura's find the small screw on underneath her left foot, now switches to right as she moves up the wall with confidence and relative ease. Yeah, very precise handwork from here. Making that important clip in the center of the wall before transitioning her weight out left with her right foot bunched and her left heel on the ledge. Maintaining that left field as long as possible to get as much back from it as a sort of semi-rest in the middle of this sort of horizontal section. Okay, and she switches her feet out from in front of her to make the move up to the left-hand pocket without any issue. And then the clip is a mere formality for her. She finds herself underneath this large yellow crescent-shaped volume. She knows the screw-on's there. She's already held it. She knows what she needs to do. Take it with the right hand. And she's gone straight up to this dish with her left hand without using her feet out left, and she's managed to make a heel hook work, and she's almost completely ignoring until this very moment the large red volume out left. So climb that in very different style to some of the other women who've been successful in this part of the route. But it all counts. That way obviously suited her in the moment, and she's just reaching almost out of her potential reach to make that clip. She just makes it work. And she's pulled straight up into the powerful section of this climb without any pause for thought. She's obviously read it from the ground, and she's read it as she's approached. She doesn't need that time for a second thought. And then again, we're seeing the use of this earlier left-hand hold, and I like the way she's made that work. I mean, we saw Zoe go direct to this ball that she has with her left hand, and Laura's really made that sort of heel hold, and she's made a high point. So this changes the women's rankings completely. Laura has established herself in the black hold that all of the female climbers at the top of the leaderboard have failed to hold, and she looks like she's still got more to give. Excellent stuff. She's found compression on this next volume. These are new moves for us now. We've not seen any of the women make it this far in the climb, and Laura looks like she's really going to make a statement here. And why not? She's on home soil, and she's high in the upper echelons of the climbing stadium now. This is the highest we've seen anyone reach. She qualified in 4th, but could this put her in 1st for the finals? Could we see a top here? This is immense from her. Oh, powerful finish, and she didn't look in any doubt of holding that. Amazing, absolutely amazing from Laura. Just a very calm and collected smile, and a good round of applause from everybody in attendance. And I think everybody's both delighted that she's made the top and enjoyed the fact that we've been able to witness those final few moves of this route. I think that's 8 moves further than any of the other athletes. It's a top for Laura. Immense from her. What a performance. Yeah, really impressed with that. I actually, excuse me, I bumped into Laura at the Saleva Cube in Bolzano 2 days ago, and it was her final training session before she came out here. Didn't really get a chance to discuss how confident she felt, but I hope I get a chance to talk to her after this before finals later. Yeah, that was the only moment I was concerned for her, reaching that clip, but she was very precise once she got it in her hand. Excellent stuff from Laura. Great to see this replay of her in this horizontal section, and yeah, the final hold in a head wall, but you don't really get to climb in it at all. So now, the 22nd athletes to join us, Isar Martinez Alamandros from Spain, and another local athlete, Davide Marco Colombo from Italy. I'm awfully familiar with watching Davide compete on the Italian circuit as a boulderer, but he is nonetheless a climbing specialist in the lead discipline as well. So his last 3 competitions were boulder competitions. European Cup in Geneva, where he placed 14th back in October 2024, and then the European Cup in Munich, March 2025, where he placed 47th, so not so successful in that one. And then the European Cup in Rome, which we've already referenced at Monkey Island in Rome back in April, where he was 32nd. But now he switches his attention to lead climbing. Excited to see what Davide can do here on this steep climbing structure. Isar Martinez Alamandros on the right hand side of our screens, making swift progress in the start of this route. She's also a mixed climbing specialist, or capable of lead and boulder disciplines. She was on Italian soil back in May of this year at the Youth European Championships at Orobia Climbing in Bergamo, where she placed 3rd. So in her, there was 3 age categories in that competition. There was under 17, under 19 and under 21. She placed 3rd in her category, which was the under 21 women's. And the very way in which she climbs on the boulders, you can tell she's got lead climbing pedigree as well. So yeah, this will be the first time I've seen her live in lead competition. Intrigued to see how she gets on as this route progresses. Looking good so far. 2 minutes gone. And almost the same for Davide. He must have just pulled on slightly before. So Davide, through all of the tentative start and the traverse from left to right, he now finds himself required to make a more powerful move, and I had no doubts that he would make it in good style. Yeah, just a moment of footless climbing there for him, but being a powerful boulderer, I had no doubts that he would execute that move with a reasonable flow, and that he did. He's made that clip, and now just trying to find the right position to sit in to make the next clip, and that's what he needs to do, I believe. Place his left foot. But he does seem to be quite low to make use of this hold that he's got like a left-hand undercut with. Most of the climbers have chosen to use that hold with their right hand to make that clip. David is sort of off-handed in a way, in respect to the way in which most of the other climbers have approached this. See if he can adjust and make it work. I'm sure he can get out of that position. So, making room to match the holds. You can see that yellow blocker low on the green hold that Nikan referred to earlier, which was one of the modifications that they made to the route prior to letting these climbers, or prior to letting these semi-finals commence, I should say. But David has spent quite a while in this position. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side of our screens, we have more immense progress from Isabel Martinez Almendros. She was high in that route, and I'm almost surprised in that moment to see her go, although I didn't see the progression into that position. So I don't know whether that's really characteristic of her attempt or not. Maybe some of you at home who are focused on her will know, and we'll have a replay in due course. But David, he's meant to be footless here. That's the proposed beta from the route setters, and he's managed to find a knee bar against the wall, and I think he's misread that. He's tried to find a very powerful method through this section rather than the sort of turn to the crowd method. That sort of knee bar, although it looked good, it's sort of set him up in the wrong fashion. Yeah, and he's smiling to himself, talking with the belayer and just discussing what he's done wrong. He's going to be disappointed, but he doesn't look too angry. Very composed young man. I like watching him in competition. He's a great role model for our sport, and an excellent climber to boot. I'm just sorry to see him leave the wall so soon. Let's see. I'm getting a bit of an issue with internet coverage here, but let's see if we can get you an update on the results based on that. Well, this is where my internet completely gives up the ghost, and I can't give you any updates about the scoring. That would be unfortunate. Let's hope I can get that back. We're in a very mountainous area though, so no surprise to have a little bit of issue. So I can tell you from the announcer, overhearing the announcer here, Simone Reina, in the stadium, that Rhys Cullen from Great Britain is setting off on men's route. And meanwhile, we have a French female athlete whose name evades me at the moment, as my internet issues persist. Rhys joined us here in Italy, in Bergamo at Orobia Climbing, most recently for a boulder competition. And on that day, he did tell me that he was focusing on lead, and hip flexibility a big focus for him. And he was looking forward to the route climbing season starting. But he surprised himself with an excellent result in Bergamo. His exact result evades me, but for somebody who's a self-professed route climber, he did excellent. Try and get you that result in due course if my internet bucks its ideas up. So, we're guaranteed Italians in the finals. As a British expat living in Italy, I would love to see a Brit in the finals. I think Zoe might have secured her spot. In fact, I think mathematically she's guaranteed a spot. Can Rhys do the same?
Rees taking his time here underneath the base of the steep section of the men's route. He's completed the traverse. He's got a couple of reasonable holds to come and a clip to make before it's really time to engage. Not as tall as Davide, that's for sure. So he might find this jump a bit more to manage. He's just setting up for it now. Little pop. Oh, and the 1-2. Left and then a right. He looked quite comfortable there, didn't he? Good body language from him. That looks smooth. And he looks like he's got bags of energy in the tank. No signs of stress really or fatigue. Just a little shake there to sort of balance the pump in the right hand. Just staring up at this section of the route, and I'm telepathically willing him not to proceed with Davide's beta of the knee bar. That's the first time we'd seen that, and I hope it's the last. That was a tricky moment for him, and one that doesn't really do his potential justice. I'm sorry to see that transpire. Now we've seen this French young lady make use of the red volume, which Laura did not. So great footwork from her. She looks really well set underneath the roof as she's just poised to progress into this steep section of the women's semi-final route. Now Rees, I think, is set well here. He's footless, but he's using now his feet to clamp. I think with a bit of luck, he's going to establish himself on these footholds on the far right. And no time for a pause. He just decides, I'm going to crack on into this pinch. Oh, and he makes the distance. I mean, in the later stages of this competition, that move there has just looked like a formality, that move up with the left hand. Earlier, we had climbers failing to make the distance on it. We had climbers hitting the smooth section of that hold, and it spat quite a few people off, but the last attempts have seen some real confident, powerful movements up to that left-hand hold, and Rees has executed in as good a fashion as anyone. And he's looking back over his shoulder at the clock. He has 1 minute 15 left, which is the first time I've been given reason to time check on these routes, I have to say. Rees has taken that time factor into account. I mean, he has plenty of time to make the top of the wall here if he's got enough in the tank. Come on, Rees. Oh, and he's gone again, and I think he's the first climber to make that work. So he's skipped the cross through to the pinch, and he's gone again wide on that volume, and he looks confident. He looks strong. Immense from Rees. Absolutely immense. Powerful, precise climbing. And this is, I think we're seeing a top here. As provided that final hold is good. Oh, look at that. An emphatic finish to his semi-finals. That's the first top on the men's route. Immense to see that route closed. And I'm beaming with pride that it's a Brit. Excuse me. Excuse me for my national pride. Yeah, chuffed for him. He's a very likeable character, and obviously all of his lead training specifics has paid off, and he's the first climber in this competition to close the men's route. That will stick him at the top of the leaderboard, of course. And I think, and no surprise, our first qualifier from yesterday's semi-finals is a French athlete in the males field from Pierre Marzullo. So an amazing showing from the French climbers here in Campitello di Fassa, and an excellent one from the Italians as well. These will be our last competitors in this semi-finals. Let's see how Pierre and Ilaria can progress. So for the women, it is Julia Chanorid from France who's in danger of being pushed out of the women's finals, sitting in 8th place. And it is Finn Altimola from Germany in the men's competition, sitting in 8th place. They are the only climbers who can be dislodged by these attempts that are in play at the moment. So wow, Pierre putting the splits in the wall momentarily there with relative ease. He's got a lot to live up to if he wants to join his compatriots in the finals. Meanwhile, Rees sitting at the top of the men's competition with a top. And then we have Jan from Czech. And then Akian from France. Younes from France. Ricardo from Italy. Felix Mader from Austria. Arnaud from Belgium. We'll review the women's field in due course as we watch Ilaria progress into the section where this wall really kicks back at you. Well, Pierre is flying. He's through the traverse section from left to right already. Not hanging about at all. Faster you climb, less time you have to spend on the wall. It might mean you've not taken pause to rest. Pierre looks like he has plenty in the tank on this route. Could we be looking at a second top in the men's field? All signs suggest that he has what it takes. I'm seeing some similarities between him and the way in which Rees approached this climb and the way in which he looked on the wall. But you could say it's early days. He's still got this powerful section to go as he stares up at it. Meanwhile, Ilaria getting some calls from the crowd, from friends and family, urging her on up this wall, as she's now at least 50% of the way through the steep section, or the first really steep section, I would say, before making this small traverse out left. Nice footwork to establish her heel, to get a bit of a weight through, take it off her arms for a moment, chalk up. Yep, great start from her. She's looking to find a way to drop that heel off so it's out of the way before she pounces up with her left hand to the pocket. Meanwhile, Pierre makes his way through the most powerful section of this climb with pure confidence, I would say. He's only got some very thin, crimpy, powerful climbing to come. Let's see how he can do on this last stage of this climb. And he's choosing to sort of bunch up and jam a knee in behind this hold. And now we saw this knee fire out for one of the athletes previously in a very precarious fashion, but he's managed to take it out in perfect control. And let's see, will he cross underneath or will he blast out? Now he's crossing underneath. So favouring a sort of more finger intensive but controlled fashion, as opposed to Rees's sort of powerful climbing, going again out wide and right. It looks like he's, oh, I'm surprised to see Pierre go. It's almost like something happened in that last moment that left him short of the move up with his left hand. I thought we were going to see another top there, and it wasn't to be. But that attempt will surely put him high in the men's rankings. And unfortunately remove our 8th place competitor from the finals. Now we watch Ilaria move into the steep section. She looks, she looked tired. She looked drained. Yeah, I was sort of seeing the elbows rise a little bit there. And she looks really disappointed with that performance after qualifying in first and coming out last. She's got to be disappointed not putting in enough of a performance there to make the finals. Let's just review our results. She's not managed to sneak in with that. She's taken 39 points, and the required would have been 42 plus. And we even have one of the women being pushed out with the same score of 42 plus just by countback, unfortunately. So, yeah, we'll review our lead tables, leaderboards, as we go into tonight's finals. So here we've got Pierre's attempt. And yeah, I don't know what happened in that moment. That's good job it hasn't cost him a place in the finals. So, really enjoyed watching this competition. And I can't say enough about the quality of the setting, thanks to the team. As we just scroll through the leaderboard, we have an Italian female athlete in the lead as we go into tonight's finals. Laura Rogora takes first. Isia Alejandros from Spain in second. Zoe Petermans from Great Britain in third. Ina Pasio-Giega from France in fourth. Maya Guttenberger from Germany in fifth. Claudia Gazzolfi, our second female Italian athlete, will take sixth position in tonight's finals. Nika Portapova from Ukraine. Fortunately, she's remained in the top 8 with her 43 plus, and she will make tonight's finals in seventh. And then finally, Julia Chenyoride from France in eighth. And then just a brief look at the men's. We have a British athlete, Rhys Conlon, taking the only top of the men's competitions. He's taken first place, followed by Pierre Marzolo in second, Jan Stipik of Czech in third, Akian Ekata from France in fourth, Younes Marsomoudi from France in fifth, Riccardo Vicentini in sixth, Felix Mada from Austria in seventh, and Arnaud Luipert from Belgium in eighth. So we will see 3 of the 6 Italian athletes who made it to today's semi-finals return for tonight's finals, which will be commencing at 5:45 this evening. That's Central European time. And yeah, we have a nice spectrum of climbers who've made the finals. We have tightly contested semi-finals which have occurred here in Campitello di Fassa, and I hope you've all enjoyed watching that, and we look forward to welcoming you back for tonight's finals. Don't miss it. I've been James Blay of Appiano Distribution Studio, and I look forward to welcoming you back for tonight's finals. Thank you. Bye-bye.